Everyone, this is your legal guru here to give you a disclaimer. Any and all information provided in this video will be based on the definitions of the statutes that may or may not have been broken, as well as my own opinions, and is not under any circumstances to be considered as legal advice.
So it's now time for the end of this story and what has become many parts of what was just going to be a one-parter to a four-parter to a five-parter to now this giant six-part. Leaving Strangeland is finally headed to the finish. Before we get with the legal guru from Chicago and what she had told me, I do want to pick up with this rocky relationship between Elise and Shaun. Throughout my time there, it was on and off again. They were frequently involving me when I didn't ask to be involved. They were never a perfect couple. Plenty of times, Shaun would reach out to other women while he was with Elise, as we can see with these messages. This person, her name is Amy, and Shaun was flirting with her and talking sweet with her while he was with Elise. See where he tells her that he has butterflies, and that she responded that she did too, and he mentions that he would love to take her on a date on New Year's. Now, unbeknownst to Shaun, she was actually friends with Elise too, so she noticed on Elise's page that it said that he was in a relationship, and she brings that up to him, and he says, I'm not in a relationship. He tells her what happened with Elise was back in May, and of course sends him the photos of them together all lovey-dovey. It's like, really, are you trying to lie? But this just goes to show the kind of man Shaun is, and that he portrays that he cared and loved for Elise, but multiple times he's reached out to other women, including good friends of mine. Now, Elise actually did get hospitalized last year. That wasn't a lie. She was apparently deathly sick. She needed a transplant. So she was hospitalized, and this is around the time that Shaun wound up showing nudes to me of her naked body. But it wasn't just me. In talking with Elise, Shaun showed those nudes to a lot of people. And when Elise needed Shaun the most, he up and bolted. So now that we've established that the horribleness of this relationship is still going on, it's around this time last year when I was approached by a woman.
I first heard of Leaving Strangeland from a mutual friend of CJ and I. He had just started his third video, so I went through 1 through 3 pretty quickly. It was definitely interesting. It interested me so much as I could not fathom how, due to the accusations and the first witness accounts within the videos, that this person had not been held liable for their actions in court. The accusations stated are not only harmful to reputations of the people who were unfortunate enough to have endured them, but can be criminal as well.
And it's weird how this works, but literally almost at the same time that I was approached by her, another familiar name approached me.
I always knew CJ Creech was involved with Strangeland because he was on my radar. I think he played on my horror trivia team one time, or was friends with some of the guys on my horror trivia team. And then as I was looking into Shaun Blair early, like when I knew he was bullshit, like this is going a year before, I started to see who people are connected to him, and I saw that CJ was connected to him, and I'm like, oh man, this isn't good, this, because CJ seems like a legit dude who I have close friends with who, know him, and I'm like, I didn't know him well enough. I didn't know him, period. I didn't know him well enough to reach out to him and say, hey, you may want to, keep an eye on this cat, because you know, because I didn't want that getting back to Shaun. I didn't know how close they were. So I just kind of watched from a distance, and then, I was keeping tabs, and then I found out about the Leaving Strangeland thing, and I'm like, okay, I gotta reach out to this guy and let him know what I know, because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Now, me and Shaun talked for months. He would send me stuff that would wind up on Shaun's page. We'd talk about what crazy stuff he was doing now, and we both knew in talking for this period of time that there was going to come a point where something needed to be done with Shaun. Now, Shaun Clark, obviously being that high up and being, a major convention agent, manager, what have you, he has the pull and the audience to put him on blast. But for the meantime, we decided to hold back. One of the things Shaun was doing at this time, which I believe was mentioned in a previous part, was he was opening up GoFundMe accounts and Facebook fundraisers and all this to get money for his cancer. And a lot of people fell for it. Between the Facebook fundraiser and his GoFundMe, he raised over $800 from people for medical treatment that of course he didn't get. He claimed the VA wouldn't cover it, which technically isn't a lie, because even though the VA would if you were actually in military, he was not. He's not in military. He never served in the military, so of course the VA wouldn't pick it up because the cancer wasn't legit. And while people are donating to this, as the money is climbing, maybe just people didn't want to really look into it, but he announces that him and Elise have bought a house, and they've got a dog. And then a couple months later, when they moved out of the state of South Carolina, Elise mentions that they had 2 brand new PS4s that were stolen. So it begs the question, what did he do with that money? Because it didn't go to a treatment for a non-existent cancer that he had. And speaking with Elise, I was able to find out a little more about these purchases. While we're still left in the dark on how Shaun got the money to pay for the PlayStation 4s, she revealed to me that Shaun actually didn't put any down payment on the house. The house thing was a complete fabrication. She also told me that Shaun pawned his mother's iPad in order to buy the dog. In between these parts that you've watched, I was keeping people on my Facebook aware of some of the involvements, and this part with the fraudulent GoFundMes and all this other stuff being bought and everything was put on there. And unfortunately, at the same time, Elise had a GoFundMe account as well for her actual treatment. And while she raised money on hers as well, some people, at that point it looked like they were both faking. As I discussed earlier, Elise's was legit, however. But people started going to Shaun and calling him out for being a fake, a fraud with these accounts. And there was actually people that he sent after other people, just like harassing through messages and stuff like that. And then, of course, he eventually contacted me stating he wanted to prove to me that he had cancer and sending me these dates and appointments that he wanted me to meet him at for his doctors. Which is really weird because now, as you'll see right here, more recently, Elise admitted that she found out that he didn't have cancer. And she put him on blast on Facebook. And that's the thing. He asked me to come to this doctor. There would be no meeting because he didn't have cancer. So I can only imagine what he ultimately might have had in store for me if I'd have went. Every time he gets caught on something, especially Strangeland or whatever, he goes through these periods where it's like, everything's good with Strangeland. Oh, you get called out on this, so now he's got this illness, or he's got that illness. And it seemingly happened to change at the drop of a dime.
One day he'll post that he's going to kill himself. The next day he'll post that he just found out he had a tumor, he has this disease, he's in the hospital, the doctors say he isn't going to live, he can't skate anymore because of a back issue, and if he keeps skating, he could be paralyzed. I mean, it was like it just, over a short period of time, it was just crazy shit. And I'm just sitting back just going, how these people not know this guy's full of crap?
Now, at this point in time, Shaun was starting to develop one of his next, I guess you could say, outlets of fraud in the entertainment industry by using one of the entertainment industry's own tools against itself.
Now, if you have an IMDb Pro account, if you pay for a subscription to IMDb Pro, you can go in and put information into almost anybody's profile. This is, a lot of people don't know that, probably shouldn't be saying that, but that is a fact, and that's what he's been doing. He's been adding himself to all these actors as their personal appearance person. Now, within 24 hours of putting his name on Danny DeVito's page, that shit was taken down. So Danny's people found out pretty quick, apparently. And he even made a post saying, "Oh, it's such an honor that Danny added me to his IMDb page." That didn't happen. Then he makes a post with a picture of Danny DeVito as the Penguin from Batman and said, "For select appearances, Danny DeVito will do costume photo ops as the Penguin." Just let that sink in for a moment. That's never happening. That is never, ever happening.
And while we're on the topic of Danny DeVito, as Shaun said, his people found out really fast. And one of the things about making this documentary throughout here is I've usually gotten in contact, or people have usually gotten in contact with me, providing the puzzle pieces that seem to be missing, just, to fully flesh things out. And that's what happened in this case, because we knew his people found out about it and got Shaun removed from his page very quickly. But I was approached by a woman named Ashley, who runs a business called Lilu Multiprops. What Lilu Multiprops is a private signing company where they get celebrities to sign a bunch of stuff, and then they put it for sale on their site. So for the past 6 months, Ashley's been trying to get Danny DeVito's agent to agree for him to do a private signing. But every time she approaches him, it's always the same response, that he's not interested in signing events. Every few weeks, she likes to send him a nice check-in email. And then her husband, who runs the company as well, saw Shaun's announcement, so she immediately emailed Danny's agent, like, "Yo, what's going on?" When the agent saw it, he was like, "The fuck?" And then it kind of just snowballed. When she told the agent that Shaun said Danny would even do in-costume appearance as Penguin, he got really mad. Needless to say that both the Danny DeVito client announcement and the post about being such a great guy for adding him on IMDb Pro disappeared from Shaun Blair's Facebook pretty quickly. He wasn't just fraudulently claiming people that he didn't rep on IMDb either. One of his former clients, Roberto Lombardi, had actually asked to be taken off of his page before Leaving Strangeland even came out. But for whatever reason, Shaun was literally holding him ransom. As a matter of fact, Roberto Lombardi was still listed as a client until Shaun actually took the Strangeland Oddities page down, despite multiple requests to have his name taken off. Deborah Lamb ran into the same thing as well, except Shaun was going the IMDb Pro route for her.
At some point, I really felt very uncomfortable with him calling me a client because I didn't feel like I was a client. So I asked him to please stop calling me a client and to remove me from his website. There was someone who contacted me sometime last year asking about my availability and said he had contacted Shaun about me. And I asked him, well, why would you contact Shaun Blair? And he said, because you're on his website. And I had asked him to remove me quite a while before that, so apparently he never did remove me. I was checking my IMDb page, and I saw that his name had been added. His name and Strangeland Oddities were added to my IMDb as representation for me. I just removed it, and I thought, okay, well, next time I talk to him, I'll be sure to say something about that. But it was the next day when I looked, and it had been removed, and then it was either the next day or maybe 2 days later, his name and Strangeland Oddities was back on my IMDb page again as my representation. So I removed it again. I did speak to Shaun. I think it was a while later. It was at least a few weeks after that. And I mentioned it, and he said, "Oh, it wasn't me. I didn't do it." He said that must have been someone who works for me. And I was thinking to myself, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would somebody take it upon themselves to add him as my representation for bookings just on their own accord? So if somebody had done that, then it would have been from him telling them to.
Of course, with all this stuff going on, the Leaving Strangeland parts revealing all of his frauds, his employees all started to leave. There was a couple that left before the parts started to come out in earnest. There's a couple that left in between and during. But no matter what, he was always blaming that on me. Never mind the fact that he was legitimately not getting them any work, not getting them any money, and most of the time was talking trash about them behind their backs to other employees. Now, as Shaun Strangeland frauds continue, obviously him and Elise, on and off again, they're back together, and she's buying everything that he's selling. At one point, he announces that he is the official manager for convention appearances of Tom DeLonge, formerly of Blink-182. And now, in one of their now infamous Facebook Live arguments, Shaun and Elise are actually arguing over who reps Tom DeLonge, and when in fact, no one reps Tom.
Alright, everybody. I will keep you posted on Strangeland events. Actually, you do not rep Tom DeLonge. I am his appearance agent. But that's fine. Whatever. If you want to think he is, then that's fine.
Let me say that again, just one more time for clarity. Shaun and Elise were going back and forth over Facebook Live on who repped a client that neither repped. Now, notice in that Facebook Live that Elise stated that she had gotten Tom into 2 conventions, and speaking with Elise a little under a month ago, she stated that Shaun had provided her no information to actually contact Tom, and that she was dealing with a lady at an alien convention that was going to pay them $17,000. Now, obviously none of that came true because Strangeland Oddities didn't actually rep Tom. This goes to show you that even though at this point they were married, he was still keeping her in the dark about his dealings in the business. So you heard me a little earlier talk about that Shaun and Elise had gotten married. It was out of the blue, mid-2019. So even though they're constantly at each other's throats, calling each other out on Facebook, this, that, and the other, they make the decision to renew their vows at a convention. Literally the only convention that Shaun actually booked some of his clients at. The very few that he actually repped. Unfortunately for Shaun, that is about the only thing he can celebrate about Strangeland Oddities at that point, as he's actually now starting to lose some of his legitimate clients. Now, John 5, the guitarist for Rob Zombie, also a talented musician in his own right, actually leaves Shaun Blair for Shaun Clark. Now, I don't know how much I had to do with it. I provided Shaun Clark with the information that Shaun Blair had actually sent me to prove that he repped John 5 to Shaun Clark with all the management information. And Shaun Clark approached them and confirmed that Shaun Blair was given permission to rep him. However, Shaun never got him anything. Needless to say, Shaun Clark filled John 5's management in on what Shaun's been up to, which you've seen in these past episodes of Leaving Strangeland, and they make the decision to officially switch over to Shaun Clark. Later on, in March of 2020, Shaun Clark also winds up getting one of the clients that Shaun stated that he repped, but never actually did, and that was Slipknot's Corey Taylor. Shaun completely offended that people would want to leave him when he's not getting them any work. Officially, I guess you could say, declares war on Shaun Clark, but not to his face. Shaun Blair starts posting cryptic posts on Facebook, such as, "I love how people steal not only your client, but can't even make up your own selling point as not a very good criminal." This is him talking about the fact that, one, Shaun Clark had gotten John 5, but that Shaun Clark was actually booking him into conventions, and they were able to book John 5 and his band, The Creatures. The interesting thing about that is the email that Shaun Blair had sent us in the business chat forever ago to prove he repped John 5 actually showed that his manager was the one who brought up that idea, not even Shaun Blair. So, once again, there'd be no reason to complain about that. But he goes further on another post, saying, "I need to start a group of managers and agents to come together and sign a petition to get someone out of the industry. It's been too long, no one will stand up but me, and they have screwed over many people. It's like all the conventions are becoming monopolized by this person, and it's strictly unfair to others trying to make a living. I've heard so many stories, and I don't care if it comes back at me." Notice he says that, but he doesn't actually mention them. Absolutely nothing. Do I care who you know? Nope. Do I care you know more people? Nope. I love how they only care about their moneymakers over their other clients as well. I'm not saying I can do a better job, but this needs to stop. Hashtag 0 fucks given. Like I just pointed out, the funniest part about this is he said, "I'm going to call them out. We need to get this person out of the industry." But yet, he doesn't. He doesn't actually name Shaun Clark. And funnily enough, Shaun Clark actually messages Shaun and asks him who he was talking about. And Shaun tells them that it was about him and Bill Philpott, who is the owner of Days of the Dead, the convention. Funnily enough, I sent somebody else to ask Shaun, and they asked, "Hey, who are you talking about?" And what was his answer? Shaun Clark. So now not only is he on Facebook pretending he's some macho badass, I don't care, you can find out if you want, talking about Shaun Clark, but won't even tell Shaun Clark over messages is about him. So it doesn't sound like Billy Badass is very badass at all. I do want to note also that his coup on getting Shaun Clark out of the industry also failed, because once again, people would take Shaun Clark's side over his because Shaun Clark is actually legitimate. Funnily enough, Shaun decided to try to word it on Facebook as if it was his decision to part ways with John 5, and tries to lessen the impact of losing him by saying that he's working on some top secret shit with OTEP that, as far as musicians go, will blow your mind. More on that later. Now, obviously, Shaun's losing his real and fraudulent clients to actual reputable agents at this point. So, if you lose people, what are you going to do? You need to replace people. Unfortunately, Shaun Blair has decided that, fuck it, he's just going to make up people and just keep making up big names. So, first he announces Charlie Day. And over the next couple of weeks, he starts announcing every single cast member of the television show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. This is when he announces Danny DeVito, which we've covered earlier. And also, he drops a hint that there's another person, a big name person from Stranger Things that he's been talking to, and that he's about to sign them exclusively. A couple days later, he comes out that it's Hopper himself from Stranger Things, David Harbour. Now, when I saw that, I knew that was completely bullshit, because he already has representation for conventions. Shaun wastes no time. He starts actually going to conventions asking for money. How much money? He's saying that for $50K a day, he'll bring David Harbour to this convention. Unfortunately, David Harbour actually cost way more than that. And much like Danny DeVito before him, this announcement disappears off his page very quickly. And then the hits stop coming and they don't stop coming because Shaun's client Tara Reid is announced for FearCon. And of course, the day before, FearCon cancels her. This is after multiple attempts. They had many run-ins with Shaun. Shaun blames it on them not meeting her contract. I've spoken briefly to the FearCon people. Obviously, they don't really want to get involved in this since it's so far behind. But needless to say, they mentioned that they have had many dealings with Shaun Blair, and this FearCon cancellation was just basically the tip of the iceberg and all of the crap that he put them through. Around this time as well, Shaun posts that he's got a new job at Red Bull. He mentions that he got sponsored by Red Bull. They sent him a sign-on bonus for $2,600, and that he should be getting some swag in the mail soon. He says, "I guess some good things can still happen for me. Thank you, Red Bull, for giving me wings." And in true Shaun fashion, a couple days later, once a lot of people are questioning the legitimacy of said Red Bull contract, he posts scam alert. People posing as Red Bull. Beware, I got scammed out of $2,600. Beware, beware. A class action lawsuit is being filed with the state attorney's office. I just got scammed by a fake company pretending to be Red Bull. And I mean, if you're thinking about it at this point, if it is real, it couldn't have happened to a greater person. I just felt like adding that. He states that their fake check bounced, and that he's such an idiot. I should have known better that someone would want a has-been skater. I've never felt like a piece of shit. I even questioned when the check came from a real estate company, and their response was they outsourced it for sponsorship. What a bunch of shit. I should have listened to Elise. I knew it was too good to be true. I called my bank and they reversed charges because they said word for word that company is a scam. And on top of it, they got our info and have been charging stuff from Amazon and PayPal, which isn't even from our accounts. This is fucking embarrassing. Oh, Shaun, just wait. It's about to get more embarrassing for you. Now, throughout all this, obviously, as we've mentioned multiple times, Shaun and Elise are constantly blowing up at each other on Facebook. They blow up, they say this, they say that, and it just never stops. It's like a vicious circle. They're just involving everybody in all of their public disputes. However, in late February, something happens that surprisingly isn't aired out. On February 26, 2020, Elise is arrested for third-degree domestic violence. However, things aren't as they seem, and even Shaun himself eventually corroborates that statement.
Once we came back from Texas, we started fighting again, and it was all over stupid shit. And basically what happened on that day, she hit me with a pot in the eye, and food got everywhere. She punched the big screen TV. Cops came. I guess they saw my eye. I didn't even tell them about my eye. I told them I didn't want her to go to jail. They said, well, you have a black eye, so, we have to take her in. So that's what happened. They took her in because of that. And, I was provoking her. We both were provoking each other on that.
And speaking with Elise, she even verified Shaun's claims and states that when she gave him that black eye last month, that it was an accident. She states, because we were in an argument and I was honestly angrily putting away dishes, I swung a pot behind me, turning around. He'd apparently stepped up really close behind me and he got whacked with it. I mean, if you ask me, he probably deserved it regardless. And the drama didn't end there. As a matter of fact, it was only going to get crazier in just 7 days. A week later, Shaun got arrested. When the news broke, it broke fast and everybody was posting about it. It was really hard to keep up. And there was no way that Shaun was going to be able to keep this under wraps, period.
I was actually on the plane coming home from Vegas, and then boom, all this stuff, my feed starts blowing up that he beat up his wife and he's in jail.
Now, after Shaun gets out of jail, he makes a live video talking about his and Elise's relationship, and he goes into detail about what happened that night. However, he seems to leave out a couple of details.
We were fighting in the hospital too, because she was saying, well, why should I stay here when you never stayed with me? And I saw her point of that, and but I still got angry over it, and I shouldn't have got angry over it. I should have just let her go home like she wanted to. I got to the point where I don't remember, taking my IV out. I don't remember discharging myself. Somehow we made it home. We started arguing again, and the subject of my children got brought up because people have been telling her that. And of course, with all the shit that has been going on and people telling her this and that, I didn't expect her to believe anything that I was saying. So, that whole night was a complete blackout. I know that she told me that I took her hands trying to punch me in the face, and it ended up punching her in the face 3 times.
Coming back, the one thing that struck me when I saw that the first time is that he says he was high on Dilaudid. I don't doubt that. Elise doesn't even doubt that, since he pulled his own IVs out and left the hospital. However, it's amazing how he remembers everything up to the moment that he attacked her. Now, I spoke with Elise about what happened that night, and she paints a pretty vivid picture of what actually happened. You see, they got into an argument, and Shaun was trying to coax her into hitting him so he could say that she hit him. She didn't want to do that, and she didn't do that. So frustrated, Shaun grabbed her hand and made her hit herself 3 times in the face. At least 3 times in the face, according to Elise. He busted open her lip, and as you can see by these pictures, it's not a pretty sight. When I look at them, these are actually really hard to look at, just because when you look at it, it's the look of a woman who's been figuratively and literally beaten down by Shaun. But then he goes on live saying that he regrets that he did it to her. She's the best thing that ever happened to him.
I know from everything that I've said so far, I know people probably think that I'm the biggest piece of shit in the world and that I've never loved Elise. I love her more than anything. Yeah, I laid my hands on her. Yeah, I did this. Yes, I did that. Everything that I've said in this video, yes, I did. She was the only one that opened my eyes and actually, made it, that I could actually be loved by someone. Someone actually gave a shit about me.
Meanwhile, he's still off screen, off social media, being the biggest douchebag, threatening to take away his Medicaid and his food stamps, which further, in part 5, just further proves they didn't have a lot of money because he's on government assistance. And he's threatened to do that. He was literally, her mother-in-law saw him parked by her kids, where her kids were staying, just creeping there. When she saw him, he drove off. Meanwhile, while this is going back and forth between them, they're still arguing. It's a very volatile situation, and it's already showing that there's going to be a lot more volatility. And it's looking like things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, and they do. At some point in one of their arguments after Shaun's arrest, release, and public apology for what he did to Elise, he brandishes a gun. Now, this gun was unregistered, with the serial number poorly filed off. Elise desperately tries to locate this gun after that argument and finds it and removes the clip and is unable to dispose of it before Shaun could get his hands back on it again. She messages others that she's terrified for her life and that she's afraid he's going to kill her and her kids. Those in her inner circle try to get her away. She's literally already lost her children because of Shaun's actions. People are desperately trying to get Elise away, but she has every reason in the world to not leave. She rebukes everybody's offers, and then it happens. He attacks her again. Shortly after, in true Shaun and Elise fashion, the post is taken down. She goes silent. To me and a lot of other people, the next word when she resurfaces after a week or so of some of us even questioning if she was still alive, her and Shaun are back together again. This vicious circle begins all over again. And honestly, it's probably not going to end very pretty at all. And as we're talking about this serious subject matter with the domestic violence, I mean, I'm here to report facts. And the facts state if Elise doesn't leave, eventually this is not going to end well with her alive, period. The Washington Post said domestic violence cases are complex, often involving victims who are reluctant to report abuse for fear of further angering their abusers or losing their financial support. And Elise is literally on one of the pages when she first mentioned that he beat her, that she couldn't get into the movie industry without him. The Huff Post last year reported that domestic violence murders are suddenly on the rise. The culprit? Guns, according to one researcher. We have a lot of repeat victims and repeat offenders because, for example, it may be the victim's only source of a babysitter. It may be the victim's only source of income, said Lieutenant Emmy Parker Staten. The victim comes back and says, I love him, I don't want to prosecute Elise. If it happens again, we revisit it again, and it may be too late. Or the second or the third time, they may be dead. Matter of fact, it goes to state, while a gun was used in 80% of all other deaths, just over half of all women killed as a result of domestic violence were attacked with a gun. A Washington Post analysis of 4,484 killings of women in 47 major U.S. cities during the past decade found that nearly half of the women who were killed, 46%, died at the hands of an intimate partner. In a close analysis of homicides in 5 of the cities, the Post found that more than 1/3 of all men who killed a current or former intimate partner were publicly known to be a potential threat to their loved one ahead of the attack. And that's already showing, because obviously Shaun and Elise are intimate, and he's attacked her that we know of at least twice. He's brandished a gun at her, and he keeps it in the house. He talks on Facebook about killing himself, shooting a gun. The math is terrible. It equals to a very bad ending for Elise if she doesn't leave. Due to all this drama, I mean, I guess that's the best way you could sum it up. After everything that's been covered in this mostly year-long span, but some spanning much, much further, Shaun makes the decision to shut down Strangeland. I'll give him a little bit of credit. He even admits some of the lies that we had already proved over a year ago, but he still left out a lot that we've covered here.
She also made a hate page about me, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen because she's going around posting it and everything like that. And I forgot, she actually contacted me on Instagram and begging me to take down my hate page, which I don't even remember making a hate page.
And that would be false, as you can see in this message he sent me before he made the live.
So basically why I'm mentioning Elise is because she had no idea what was going on.
That is true, as Elise told me back in March.
I thought I was talking to Tommy Chong. I contacted an email that was on Instagram, and it seemed like it was legit, and I said, hey, I would love to represent you, this and that. So everything seemed legit. So I contacted a couple cons. New Jersey Horror Con was the first one to contact me, and I was also under the impression that I had Cheech Marin. Turns out Tommy's people contacted me, which is his son, and I sent him the email that I got off Instagram and said, this is the person that I contacted. And they said, well, that's not even Tommy's stuff, even though it was a verified account on Instagram.
That is false. As you can see here, first off, to request a verified badge on Instagram, you have to send a required form of identification, for example, a government-issued photo ID. The account must represent a real person, registered business, or entity. Only one account per person or business may be verified. So if, as he's saying in here, the account was verified for Tommy Chong, it was by him or his representation. So anything that would have been told to Shaun would have been truth, i.e., Shaun lied, because obviously Tommy Chong never gave him the okay to do it. Once again, this is another case like the Danny DeVito case.
Speaking of Tara, I have a email from Randy. I don't remember his last name, but I have a email from Randy. He is from Entertainment Tonight, ET. They were doing the American Pie reunion, and they saw my name and they were asking me to get a hold of Tara. So I got a hold of Tara, I got her in, and then there was a mishap with her transportation, and I fixed that as well. And I got an email with the entire thing that they did for American Pie, all the links, even stuff that they did not show on Entertainment Tonight. But I do have an email from ET stating, "Thank you, Shaun. We couldn't have done it without you."
This is kind of a mixed bag because, as we proved in Leaving Strangeland Part 4, he really didn't do much for this American Pie reunion. He did get an email sent thanking him for his work, but as the Randy that he mentioned, as we confirmed with, all Shaun did was, as he mentioned in this live also, was help with the rental car.
So basically, the B clients, most of them, I did try to help out, and obviously I couldn't. All the A-listers that I mentioned, as far as It's Always Sunny, Danny DeVito, things like that. All that was never true. I lied about all that. Like I said, my biggest client was Tara Reid, and everybody else was made up. I made it all up.
And this one speaks for itself. Now, one of the things, every time I came into contact with Shaun always threatened legal with me. It was every time I was exposing him, he would threaten legal, he'd back off, he'd say, "Go ahead, post whatever you want, I don't care." And then he would care, and then it was just this, it was once again like his relationship, it was in a circle. And since the last time we talked, that his legal threat still stands. However, before he casts stones in the legal department, our legal guru wants to go over, really to give everybody a review on some of the stuff that we've covered in these parts, and also let him know what some of these charges may cost him.
For our purposes, we are going to be looking at fraudulent misrepresentation. There are also different types of fraudulent misrepresentation. Making a statement to the other party that is clearly false, making a statement that is partially true or a half lie. This means that some parts of the statement may be true while other aspects of it may be false. Omitting details in a way that creates false beliefs in the other person's understanding, or being completely silent on a subject or failing to disclose important information, especially where they are legally required to provide such information. The remedies for fraudulent misrepresentation. Remedy will be some form of monetary damage. Usually it's a civil lawsuit. These monetary values will be calculated based on the amount of harm or loss experienced by the plaintiff or the star. If the court deems that the misrepresentation is a criminal offense, then jail time may be possible. It just depends on how severe it really is. If it's a multiple offender, more than likely they're going to get jail time. For some of these stars to request and get these, their names taken off of the website that he had put up. And he still would use their names as if he was still representing them, even though he wasn't. Everything was just falsified. So it's fraud. It was all just fraud. Anyone who, without the authority of its owner, uses copyrighted work in a way that constitutes an infringement may be subject to civil remedies, including an injunction, forfeiture of the infringing items, and obligation to pay the copyright owner all profits from the infringement, money damages, and the owner's and attorney's fees. In appropriate cases, the infringer is also subject to criminal penalties. Those are up to $100,000. So CJ sent me a copy of the NDA, or non-disclosure agreement, that Shaun had created. And it was laughable, to say the least. A non-disclosure agreement is a valid contract between two parties that outlines confidential material, knowledge, or information that the parties wish to share with one another for certain purposes, but wish to restrict access to the information. Kind of like the doctor-patient privileges. Well, under Clause 11 in his contract, it states jurisdiction. Now I'm going to read this word for word here. This agreement will be covered by and construed in accordance with the laws of South Carolina without regard to the principles of conflict of laws. Each party consents to the exclusive jurisdiction of the courts located in the states of South Carolina for any legal action, suit, or proceeding arising out of or in connection with this agreement. Each party further waives any objection to the laying of the venue for any such suit, action, or proceeding in such courts. The question is, what venue? Where? What county would this be in? Which court? Is it going to be a federal court? Is it going to be a civil suit? What are you referring to here? All of this should have been placed within this section. I mean, otherwise the contract is deemed invalid. Well, the Sixth Circuit has ruled that consent clauses will be presumed valid only in the absence of fraud, which may have been committed. So that in itself, saying that, the fraud may have been committed, makes the entire NDA agreement completely invalid. The clause further states that a crime where criminal conduct crosses state lines, such as internet fraud, that has victims and perpetrators in multiple states, will be heard in federal court. We know that this crossed state lines from the previous videos. The employees were definitely in different states. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to discuss is called a DBA, or doing business as. There must be a parent company associated with the DBA. In order to certify as a doing business as under the parent company, the DBA company must regularly conduct business and render professional services under the DBA name, and is required by law to use the DBA name. This being said, the parent company must be named as well when asked. For example, should a person ask DBA Strangelander what parent company it has been running under, as they are a DBA? By law, they are required to answer. They are also required to be registered and searchable through the corporation LLC search. So the next thing I want to talk about is libel. The reason why I want to bring this up is because anything else that I will be discussing will not fall under these rules. It doesn't meet the requirements. The statements that I'm about to say are all true statements. The statements within all of these videos have been proven as true statements, so no one can get sued. But I also want to look at the criminal history of Shaun, because I think that that's definitely something that should be addressed as to the type of person and character he is. It may be presumed that the overall litigation discussed may be applied to Shaun Blair's business and personal habits. Through my research, I found 3 different companies that fall under the category of fraud. Strangeland Oddities seem to be the worst due to the many different stars that he claimed to be in contract and agreement with, and they were falsified. So Shaun was arrested in Florida for theft. 3 convictions for worthless or bad checks. He was charged with a felony and given 2 years of probation, and obviously he had to pay back the charges. He never did pay back those charges, and he never completed his probation. Most recently, Shaun was arrested for domestic violence in the 3rd, and he had to pay a $1,000 fine. And to be perfectly honest with you, domestic violence is quite scary and definitely nothing to mess with. It's really unfortunate that the woman had to deal with this. It is also quite shocking that he only received the $1,000 penalty, because in the statute of Alabama where he's residing, it states that it could be up to a $6,000 fine with a minimum of 30 days of jail time. So one can only assume as to what happened within that courtroom, but from previous cases and experiences, I can say that most of the time this would happen because the person who brought the crime on or called the police could have stepped in front of the judge and asked for a lighter sentence, saying that, it was an argument and, it just got a little bit out of hand, but it was okay, they're okay, everything's fine. But in all actuality, when you're in this type of relationship, things are not always just fine. Considering that this is not his first offense for domestic violence, he has a history of it. It should definitely be something that people should, deem as a character trait. Obviously, he has an anger switch. And we've seen that through the different videos as well. CJ's talked about how he's, talked about him in defamatory ways, been extremely mean. So looking at all of these factors, I think that it can be concluded that Shaun Blair is a terrible person. He's done terrible things, and he continues to do these terrible things. I wouldn't call you a terrible person unless you continue to do these things, these terrible acts, and not learn from them. If you could learn from them and stop doing them, then perhaps you're not a terrible person, you just did some terrible things in the past. But he just keeps continuing to do them. And Strangeland Oddities, I'm sure, will just be another number. There'll probably be a 5th company, a 6th company, a 7th company that, that will pop up under his name, and he will consistently be arrested for things like fraudulent checks or domestic violence or hopefully eventually fraud. My hope is that one day that justice will be served upon him, that somebody will step forward and do something about this man, because justice needs to be served.
And that's what these videos are for. One, obviously, to keep a record of everything that he's done, so this doesn't happen to other people. And that's the main reason why a lot of people have joined in on this project. We're here to spread the word that Shaun Blair is a fraud.
I definitely think everybody should be made aware of this guy, and not let him waste more people's time in this business, because it's guys like this that waste my time as a legitimate agent, promoters' time, the fans' time. I mean, how many fans got psyched when Cheech Marin was announced? I bet you there was a bunch of fans that got super stoked, and, nobody should listen to Shaun Blair or Strangeland Oddities, that they're BS. Anybody who gets contacted by this guy needs to just tell him to go away, because he's just a cancer. Yeah, the only cancer he has is himself. He's a cancer, and he's wasting all of our time.
So I just feel that people should know that he's lied about a lot of things. There's a lot of really shady things that he's done, and the claims that he's made are just not true, and people should be warned about that. I think pretty much a very large group of people know about the drama revolving him and Strangeland Oddities, but for those who don't know, they should be warned to. I would advise against getting involved with Strangeland oddities or Shaun Blair.
You know, even after all those testimonials, I feel like OTEP put it the best when she called him a scumbag and a scam artist. Now, earlier I posted a quote when we were talking about the employees leaving, where Shaun was like, tell CJ he won this battle. Well, no, not only were they acting of their own volition, but with the help of the others, many who you've seen in this video, people who've sent me the messages that you've seen in these videos, whether they were named or anonymous, have all had their say. And we've all won this war. And now with Shaun out of the convention industry, my story's done. Leaving Strangeland is finally over. There's no more Strangeland, period. However, Shaun is now trying his hand at the movie industry as an effects artist. So be wary, folks. If you have access to his page, keep watch. Because in the near future, someone else may be starting a Leaving Strangeland of their own.